All right, welcome to Dicejunkies. This is Bloodact, and I have on screen with me Q, and we have a very special guest today, Mr. Timothy Rose. You may know him for his work in The Dark Crystal. He also did Return to Oz, Muppet Christmas Carol, but also My Passion. If you watch the show on a regular basis, he was a puppeteer in Star Wars. So, Mr. Rose, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
But you had mentioned Howard the Duck. I definitely wanted to go back to that because you actually were the head operator of Howard the Duck in that film, were you not?
I was the master puppeteer. There were 5 of us. I just did a Howard the Duck Zoom convention.
Cool.
It was Ed Gale was in the suit. And then I was the master puppeteer, so I operated the mouth and did the guide track for the dialogue. And Steve Sleep operated the eyes. Peter Baird also helped operate the head. Lisa Stirs helped me with arm movements when we used the hand puppet, and Mary Wells.
Wow.
So there were 5 of us doing it. I was actually brought over because of my animatronics work. They'd been working for 7 months to make the duck. And it was a woman, it was Rick Baker's wife, Elaine Baker, who had been hired to build the duck. And they'd been working on it for 7 months, and they didn't have a duck that actually worked. So George went to Phil Tippett and he says, "Phil, what are we going to do about this? We're getting ready to shoot. We don't have a duck that works." And Phil said, "Well, you need somebody like that guy that did Akbar, the one that made Akbar into a puppet and all that. He was great. Why don't you find somebody like him?" "Well, where is he?" "I don't know. I think he's in England." "Well, get him over here." And so then they contacted me in England, and with 1 month to go, I came over with a Polish friend of mine, Tad Szynovsky, and we completely rebuilt the duck. We built a puppet version as well, because I like working with puppets for close-ups. And then I got to operate the duck for the next 9 months.
Wow.
And it was one of the hardest things I ever did, due to lack of sleep mainly, but also the one that I'm most proud of, because there were several flaws with Howard. My first one was when they were trying to talk me into coming over, they sent me 10 copies of the Howard the Duck comic. And I instantly fell in love. I didn't know anything about him. I instantly fell in love with the character. And then I got there and saw their duck, and I said, "Okay, so where's Howard?" "Oh, well, we didn't think a cartoon would work in a movie with live actors, because they hadn't done Roger Rabbit yet. They hadn't done, anyway."
Right.
So this was he had to be more humanoid. He couldn't be a duck. And I said, "Well, if he doesn't look like Howard, you've already killed your core audience, because it's going to be all the Howard the Duck comic book fans who are going to be the first ones to come see your movie."
Right.
So anyway, who listens to me? I'm just the guy brought in to fix it, And we worked very, very hard. I'm very proud of how we worked with the duck, that I wasn't allowed to change and kept them alive in every shot in the movie, so that you believe it's the duck and not think about the person operating the duck.
Right.
But it was a flawed piece, yes. Actually, I got stuck in an elevator with Stan Lee. I was at a convention. And the fan said, "Have you talked to Stan yet?" And I said, "No, why should I talk to Stan?" "Well, you were his first Marvel character ever be made into a movie, So I said, "Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Okay." So I get back to the hotel. I see the elevator doors closing. I jump into the elevator so I don't miss that trip up.
Right.
And I'm in the elevator with Stan Lee. And at that moment, all I could think of to say was, "I was the first Marvel character you ever had on the movies. I did Howard the Duck." And he just glared at me, and he didn't talk to me all the way up in the elevator. And I bought the autobiography of Stan Lee and read that because Howard the Duck was so unsuccessful, he was out in California trying to turn his Marvel characters into movies. And because Howard the Duck was so unsuccessful, it took him another 10 years before anybody picked up another Marvel character to make into a movie. So I was a guy that kept him out of work for 10 years. No wonder he didn't talk to me in the elevator.
So you jumped on the
Wow.
elevator. Oh, that's got to be amazing. You jump on the elevator and you go, remember that really bad thing that happened? That was me. And he's
I
just
was the one
like,
responsible for the worst thing that ever got done to one of your puppet characters.
you
Yes.
weren't, though. I agree with you that misstep. I can't stand it when people go, let's change the design. We're not even going to talk about these days of how far they're going with changes. Oh, man, it's so hard to avoid these
Oh yeah,
subjects.
Sonic was wild. But yeah, it's unfortunate because
Let's take the idea and then throw it out the window and make our own thing, but we're going to keep the title. Yeah.
I mean, the first test is that the first thing as humans, I'll try to keep this quick, and I've been told I don't, but I'm going to try. The first thing, though, you're 100% correct that the first thing is visual. The first thing when somebody goes, this is this character, is you're going to look at it, and then you're either going to go yes or no. And from there, it's a downhill if they fail test one. If you look at that and go, that's not that character. Now they've got to really pull off voice, mannerisms, acting, and everything else to pull you in. Otherwise,
So I was going to say that voice isn't coming out of that character.
Yeah.
right.
You don't do the voice for the character. They tell you what voice they want. Because you have to believe that voice when you're watching the monitor. And if you don't believe that voice, it's not the right voice.
Yeah, and then it just keeps going. Because once you lose that recognition, you're divorced from the lore, which means now you're trying to sell people on something new. Because it's just like with like Spider-Man. The thing I have to give for the last few Spider-Man movies, one of the series, not so much, but the last one, the very last one, and the I don't know who that name. I forgot the name of the little actor, but was when I looked at it and I said Tom Holland. Yeah, Tom Holland's, is that the last one and the one? But what about the one before that though?
Andrew Garfield.
No, before that. I'm sorry, Garfield never sold me.
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland's won huge points because when I saw them, I said, "Yeah, that's Peter Parker," and we're rolling. We're rolling because I said, "Okay, This is Peter Parker." Nothing against Garfield. When I saw Garfield, I said, "That's not Peter Parker," and I felt bad because the movies weren't bad, but it wasn't Peter Parker. So from that point on, it was just the best they could do was tread water. They already, they're now just like, we're trying to keep above water. But when they sold me a Peter Parker, I could forgive a lot once I said, it's Peter. Oh, that scene could have been, well, it's Peter. You win a lot of points on just getting that first thing right. Once you get the first thing right, your people's tolerance level is a bit higher. But once it's not, and then I'll stop there. Like I said, once it's not, you're just going, nah.
And the actor you like probably asked for a raise, which is why he didn't do the next movie. So
that usually happens quite a bit. I think Spider-Man 3 might have did it for Tobey Maguire. That wasn't all his fault, though. That movie, Venom actually wasn't sold. Like, oh my God. I was like, no, that's not Venom. Like, that is, whoa. There's a perfect example. They took another really popular character, and I looked at it and said, that's not Venom. But on the flip side, I love Doc Ock. Oh, man, I thought Dr. Octopus was so well done. I love the actor. I said, that's Dr. Octopus. And, the Otto Octavia said, it's like, okay, it's amazing what you'll tolerate once they get this the first step right. When you look and you go, I recognize that character, they can even mess up or the dialogue can be a little bad, but you're a little more tolerant because, again, submersion. You're not seeing the actor, you're seeing the character. And look at that. We went back to that point. Just like with your puppeteering, like I said, when a person looks at it and forgets it's a puppet, you've won already. That's the ultimate victory.
Yep. Speaking of victory, we're going to switch over to my favorite topic, which is Star Wars. And
he keeps trying to go to Star Wars. Come on, let's just keep talking.
Yeah, we're 40 minutes in. We haven't even gotten.
Let's talk about the Muppets.
But no, as a kid, I really enjoyed Howard the Duck as a kid, and I watched it multiple times. I remember when we got a copy of the video, I probably almost tore the tape. I watched it so much, so I enjoyed it. So you sold me on the character, but at the end with the portal and the demons coming across, that always creeped me out as a kid.
That was okay. We can tie that into Star Wars. When I was working in the workshops with Phil Tippett building the characters for Return of the Jedi, he said to me then, because Phil's thing was to be a stop action animator. He had his own little Go Motion thing that he was working on to improve stop action, so stop action animation could stay alive and in the business. And he said, Tim, what I've always wanted to do was build a character that was so scary that when he comes on, you go, ah, like that. And then go, oh, you thought that was scary? Guess what? That's not even my face. And the character that shows at the end of Howard the Duck that comes up out of the light transformer thing, that's exactly what he does. He comes up and you think you're looking at the face of the character, and then the face rolls up on top of that and is even more scary. So
Yeah.
Phil finally got to do that was one of his ambitions. It's nice, you never get paid for any of this stuff, so it's nice to at least get your ambitions in there on screen. So
He was successful, that's for sure. But yeah, I just remember that creeping me out as a kid. So he was spot on with what his intentions were.
He wanted to scare you.
He did. He did.
I want you to watch this from behind the sofa.
For me, that'll always be Pee-wee's Big Adventure moment. I'm sorry. My childhood trauma will always be. And when they pulled him out, it looked like, and I remember like to this day, as an adult, I tried to watch that scene again, and I actually found myself tensing up, knowing it was coming on. Like, that was a great, like, claymation moment where I was just, because I didn't see it coming. Like, you're just like, oh, wow, this is kind of spooky. And then as a kid, I was just like...
Funny story about Large Marge, and I'm gonna make this quick, but I definitely want to get into Star Wars with Mr. Rose. But in junior high, yeah, we're trying. In junior high school,
yeah, we're gonna have to hurry because I got a guy coming to buy my tent this afternoon. So
I'm running out of time.
But in junior high school, my bus driver looked just like Large Marge. I mean, could pass for Large Marge. And one of my best friends, God rest his soul, he died when I was a senior in high school, would recite the entire line that Large Marge had made in that movie, but would change it to a school bus type theme. And he got suspended because he kept calling her Large Marge. But fitting image of Large Marge.